Welcome to another Detective Squirrel Investigate video. In this video we will be looking at poltergeist activity and possible possession. Not things that usually coincide, but they did in this house, 284 Green Street in the town of Enfield, north of London. So what happened behind this unassuming facade? Living at 284 Green Street were Peggy Hodgson and her children, 13-year-old Margaret, 11-year-old Janet, 10-year-old Johnny and 7-year-old Billy. On the night of Tuesday the 30th of August 1977, Peggy heard noises coming from the bedroom where 11-year-old Janet and 10-year-old Johnny were supposed to be asleep. She went to the bedroom planning to complain to the children about making a noise when they were supposed to be sleeping. But when she entered the bedroom, Janet insisted that they had heard banging on the wall before their beds were shaking. Peggy didn't believe them and told them to go to sleep. The following night, after more noises in the same bedroom, where now Janet shared with her elder sister Margaret, and again Peggy complained about them being noisy, but as she turned towards the door, a heavy chest of drawers moved away from the wall, blocking her way. She was startled for a moment, pushed back the piece of furniture back against the wall, but then it moved again. Again she moved it, pushed it back. A third time it came out even more violently. Now she was shaken and gathered her children downstairs. At a loss to what to do, Peggy takes her children to the neighbour's house, Vic and Peggy Nottingham. After Peggy Hodgson explains the situation, Vic Nottingham goes into their house. He hears the banging and sees Lego bricks and marbles fly around. He quickly leaves. Vic calls the police. 2 police officers are dispatched. WPC Heap gave a report after visiting the house. She openly reported hearing banging before seeing a chair lift about half an inch off the ground and move 3 to 4 feet. But they couldn't help as there was no crime being committed. They suggested if the family was religious, then they might ask a priest, or if not, or if that doesn't help, then maybe worth considering going to the press for their story. Their local vicar did visit but could not help. So on the night of the 3rd of September, Vic Nottingham phoned the Daily Mirror. At first the man on the night desk wasn't interested, but Vic persisted and called repeatedly. What changed the night desk man's mind was when Vic mentioned that the police had been there and reported events in the house that they witnessed. And so, on the 4th of November, reporter Doug Bentz and photographer Graham Morris visit the house to follow up on the report. They interviewed the family and had a cup of tea, remaining at the house for only a couple of hours before packing up and leaving. But as they head for the car, Vic Nottingham calls them back. They head back in, and as they enter, they hear the knocking and then see marbles and Lego bricks flying about the place. Graham Morris moves back into a corner and sets his camera to its widest focus, trying to capture a photo of the event. A Lego brick strikes Graham Morris on the eyebrow with such force that it leaves a mark. Doug Bentz picked up one of the marbles that had been thrown around the floor and found that it was, as well as the Lego bricks, were hot to the touch. The following morning, after Graham Morris's film had been developed, he was frustrated to find that he had caught nothing in the series of photographs he had taken. Doug and Graham decide it's time to call in the professionals. Not those professionals. We're talking ghosts here. So, who are you going to call? Well, not exactly Ghostbusters, but certainly real-life ghost hunters. The Society for Psychical Research. And so was dispatched a new member, Maurice Gross, ex-RAF pilot with excellent handlebar moustache and driving an E-Type Jaguar. After interviewing the family and witnessing himself objects moving and smaller objects being thrown by some unseen force and hearing the knocking, he decided to try to communicate with it. He asked simple questions that had yes or no answers and asked for 1 knock for no and 2 for yes. He got clear responses before receiving an answer of 3 knocks. He then asked, "Are you having a game with me?" And the response was a cardboard box being flung at him. Realising this was going to be a job too big for one person, he asked for some extra help from the SPR, and they sent Guy Leon Plainfield, who was an experienced member who had investigated poltergeist activity recently in Brazil. Guy was also a writer. On 10th of September, the story became front page news in the Daily Mirror. Guy and Maurice called in a research assistant from Birkbeck College to interview the family. His name is David Robinson. During his interview, an ashtray was thrown at him, striking him in the head. As it was front page news, the BBC sent a young radio reporter by the name of Ros Morris. During her time at the house, she also heard knocking and witnessed objects moving. Doug Bent and Graham Morris were still visiting, and Graham was still taking photos. But on this day, he had 2 fully charged flash guns. His equipment was always ready to use, fully charged, etc. But when he came to use them, both flash guns failed, the energy having drained from them. They also tried to get video, but the video equipment failed as well. The activity in the house was getting stronger, including one night when a gas fire grate was pulled out of the wall, pipes and thick metal being bent. As this was a hazard, the following morning Maurice actually removed it from the house. During November, the activity still continued, now included small fires starting and then dying just as quickly, with no identifiable source for the ignition. One night, the now 12-year-old Janet started having a fit. A doctor was called and he administered Valium. The activity seemed to be centering around Janet. Maurice decided to test her potential telekinetic powers. He told her to move a large red cushion to see if she could push it down through the floor to the level below. Instead, the cushion went up. It was seen above the roof of the house. Janet then claimed that she could go through the wall. She proved this by telling Maurice that she had been through the wall into the neighbour's bedroom, a room she had never been in. She was able to describe it perfectly and also claimed to have left a book there. In that bedroom, one of Janet's books was found, a book called Fun and Games for Children. Then came the famous photos potentially showing Janet levitating. Many critics have claimed that the photos look like she's just simply jumping off her bed, but that doesn't explain 2 eyewitness reports. A local lollipop lady, what American viewers would call a crossing guard, named Hazel Short, looked up to the bedroom window and witnessed Janet levitating. A sight that was also witnessed by a local delivery driver named John Rainbow. So 2 people that had nothing to do with the investigation or the family. Peggy Hodgson's brother John Burkham lived a few doors down the road and came up to their house to offer his sister some comfort in this difficult time. After hearing a commotion in the bedroom shared by Janet and her sister Margaret, he went upstairs to find Janet still fast asleep but draped over an old radio which was on the opposite side of the room from the bedroom. The following events became perhaps the most well-known and even perhaps the most shocking. That was the voices that seemed to be coming from Janet. At first it was a barking noise. Morris encouraged the voice, asking it to say his name. After some days, more voices became distinct. The most distinct was one that claimed to be someone called Bill.
Let me hear you say my name. Come on, let me hear you say my name. That's not my name. Come on, my name's Morris. Let me hear you say it. Morris.
Eventually, after some coaxing, Morris got the voice to reveal more, that his name was Bill Wilkins, and that he used to live in the house, that he'd gone blind before suffering a hemorrhage and died sitting in the armchair in the corner downstairs, the same chair that witnesses had seen moving. To ensure that the voice was not just something Janet was doing, Morris got her to take a mouthful of water and then taped her mouth shut. The voice still spoke. The tape was removed and Janet spat out the water. One of the leading ventriloquists of the day, Ray Allen, was called in to see the situation for himself. He concluded that it was not Janet performing ventriloquism and he had no answer for how it was possible. Morris and Guy managed to borrow a piece of equipment from a hospital, an oscilloscope. It was discovered that the voice was coming from the area called the fault vocal cords in Janet's throat. This is only usually used if someone has a sore throat or for some other reason has lost their voice and your voice becomes croaky. But if you do somehow manage to learn how to use that part, if you do so for extended periods, you can do some serious damage to your throat. Janet was able to produce this voice for on and off for up to 3 hours without any ill effects. The family moved in with Peggy's brother John Burkham. John returned to the house to collect an alarm clock. He went upstairs to the girl's bedroom. He saw the handle turn and the door open by itself. He stepped inside the room and the door closed behind him. He picked up the clock and as he turned to the door, once again he saw the handle turn and the door opened. He left the room as the door closed behind him as he fled from the building. In May of 78, worried about her health, both physically and mentally, Janet was taken into hospital. The hospital carried out every test possible over a 2-month period. She returned home with a perfect bill of health. Things were much quieter in the Hodgson household. In November 78, a renowned Dutch medium called Donno came to the house. He went into the girl's bedroom, spent an hour or so chanting before leaving, insisting it was all over. Some critics have accused Maurice Grosse of getting too close to the family and that his investigation lacked objectivity due to his joining the SPR after his daughter's death in a motorbike accident in August 76, only a year before the investigation. But many believers have also accused the SPR for their lack of support for Morris and Guy during the investigation. The SPR ordered an investigation into, the investigation. This was carried out by Mary Rose Baring. She interviewed everyone involved, the 2 investigators, the family members, Doug Pence and Graham Morris from the Daily Mirror, the neighbours and the eyewitness, and the research assistant. Her conclusions were that there was certainly evidence of paranormal and specifically poltergeist activity. Guy Leon Plainfield's book of the experience, This House is Haunted, was published in 1980. One person who came to read the book was a certain Terry Wilkins, son of Bill Wilkins. Terry contacted Guy, who put him in contact with Morris, and they arranged to meet. Terry listened to the recordings Morris had made and announced that the voice that claimed to be Bill sounded like his father, who was Bill Wilkins, who lived at the house and who had indeed gone blind and had a hemorrhage that led him to dying and sitting in an armchair in the corner of the living room. Since the haunting at the house, there has been a number of documentaries over the years, starting with the Nationwide on the 23rd November 1977, also including a series called Strange But True, the 7th episode of their second series, broadcast on the 20th of October 1995. In 1992, the BBC's Halloween event called Ghostwatch was inspired by the events in Enfield. There have also been some dramatisations of the events, including a British-made TV miniseries in 2015. Then, of course, there is the travesty of The Conjuring 2 in 2016, which had the Warrens doing everything and had the insulting image of Maurice Grosse saying they could make money from the story. This did not happen. In fact, the Warrens had nothing to do with it, really. They had heard about the story from a local priest of theirs, decided to fly over to the UK and have a look. They were at the house for no more than 2 hours, and it was then Ed Warren who said to actually Maurice Grosse, "We can make a fortune." That was the point that Peggy Hodgson and Morris insisted they leave. To have Morris say that in the film was insulting to his memory. Morris passed away on the 15th of October 2006. The children have moved out and live relatively normal lives. Peggy continued to live at the house until her death in 2003. Now there is a rumour, so as it's only rumour, take it with a pinch of salt, but apparently an employee of Enfield Council claimed that after Peggy Hodgson's death, they received a call from Ed Warren asking if he could purchase the house with the view of charging admission as a haunted attraction. Now, as I said, it's only a rumour, but with the actual character of Ed Warren, it wouldn't surprise me. Hope you enjoyed this lengthy adventure. If you did, then please hit that thumbs up button and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified of any future videos uploaded on this channel. And in the meantime, this is Detective Squirrel, out.